the strength of the Spirit today.
Amen.
I know I've been in my past and I've been standing since 11 o'clock. And so it is the Ruach Hashem that gives us strength and power to continue in the way that we are in. What I'd like to talk about today is to really do a closer study of the concept of forgiveness. So I'm not going to talk about into the biblical characters I normally would in a sermon with a theme, but to have a study, because we've had 10 days to think about this. But as I said, people are procrastinators. And so although we've had 10 days, many people have come right to the last day and have not thought seriously about it. Although you have 10 days of reflection, and thinking, and contemplation, we've come to this day, and often we have not really thought about it. So I'm going to take you through the concept of forgiveness in the Israelite tradition and as revealed in Torah and in our scriptures. If you would like a copy of this, I could put it on the website. I have a lot of other essays on there, and I might add this one to it. But I want to cover it in some detail. So first, and always first, I give all honor and praise to the Most High God, the Creator and Ruler of the universe, that awesome God, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and arranges the stars and planets in their positions in the sky. That God who at the beginning said, "Let there be." All things came into existence. The God of our ancient ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. That God who told us that at this time, in the 7th month, in the 10th day of the month, shall be a day of atonement, and commanded us to participate therein. This is the God I give thanks for. This is the God before whom I stand. The God who gave me life and before and giveth life and taketh it away. As we look into this subject of forgiveness, I'm going to give you several scriptures here. Let us begin in the book of Exodus, the 34th chapter, the 5th verse. Exodus, the 34th chapter, 5th verse. Because it goes right to the core of who God is. As man tries to define God, we can only describe him according to his attributes, according to the qualities that we can see and understand. Not things beyond our own ability to comprehend. And so in the book of Exodus, the 34th chapter, the verse, it says, "The Lord descended in the cloud, and stood with them there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by him, and proclaimed, the Lord, God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands of generations, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, and that by no means clears the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon their children's children, unto the 3rd and 4th generation, but showing loving kindness to the thousands of generations of them that love me and keep my commandments." So this defines God by 13 different attributes. Although as we look at those descriptions, many of them, although they're considered 13 different attributes, the preponderance of them refer to God's forgiving nature in so many different ways. God is forgiving. Far more forgiving than how many attributes describe his might, his power, and his destructive capacity, which also exists. But it says the Lord is merciful, rahum, and gracious. To be merciful, that's his nature. For some people, it takes a lot of effort to be forgiving. A lot of strength. They're fighting the anger and the revenge and the hurt and the pain is so difficult. It doesn't come easy for a lot of people. But for God, this is his nature to be merciful and gracious. And that's why perhaps one adjective isn't sufficient, because each one of these descriptions, both in the Hebrew and in the English, give another shade of meaning. Because to be gracious is not just to be merciful. See, some people are merciful begrudgingly. It's like, I'm going to do it because I know it's right. I'm supposed to be merciful. And I'm going to forgive you because I know it's Yom Kippur. And I know I'm supposed to forgive you. But boy, would I like to punish you. So I'm punishing myself by forgiving you. This second quality, gracious, right? This is to do goodness with a cheerful disposition. Not out of pain, but I'm just, all right, I forgive you. Boy, it's killing me to do that. But the other quality of God is gracious. When he forgives, it doesn't cost him anything. It isn't just done begrudgingly, or I could have punished them, but I missed out on that opportunity. And I like this other adjective, even in the English. In Hebrew, I like fine, but in the English, this is long suffering. I like that because that's not a word we normally use even in English. And an adjective, although we can use some of these adjectives to describe people as well, I have rarely heard a person described as being long suffering. Long suffering. And so I like that, and that is pretty accurate. I like meaning long in Hebrew. God can suffer a long time. Is that one of your qualities? To say long suffering. He has the ability, the quality to put up with a lot of stuff for a long time. Most people, you reach their limit. Right, Shakina? Don't reach their limit. When they reach their limit, she says, I'm at my limit. That means don't go any further. I reached my limit for suffering, my limit for tolerance with foolishness, my limit for lies and deceit and false statements of asking for forgiveness. I'm at my limit. But God has been high limit. He is long suffering. And you got to be a long suffering God to put up with the people like Israel. Because if he had a lower threshold for pain, then he would have been finished with us already. But he is long suffering, and this is why God is good, and God is so unique to really appreciate these attributes, as we call them. And he is abundant in goodness and in truth. He keeps mercy for thousands of generations. So his mercy is as long as his capacity for suffering. He forgives, and get this, iniquity, transgression, and sin. Now I like here where it breaks it down because it says it's not all the same thing. There's iniquity, there's transgression, and there's sin. We talk a lot in the press about the kata. There's also the Torah that we read today, focusing on the sin. But iniquity and transgression as well. Iniquity referring to people who do things that are wrong. It is still wrong. Transgression meaning to break or to break a commandment is a transgression. It is a violation. And sin, the difference between iniquity and transgression and sin implies consciousness of guilt, and often premeditation without repentance. That's why it's the third and worst category. Right? We do things, some of the things we do, they may be wrong, so it is a transgression, it is a violation, whether we are aware of it or not. And that's why in the Hashamu prayers and in the Abinu Malkeinu prayers that we said this morning, we said we ask God for forgiveness, both for those things which we are aware and for those things which we are not aware. And the category of the things we're not aware may be even more than things we are aware of. Because we don't know. We think we're doing the right thing. We think we're following the commandments as they're supposed to be done. But if we are in error, then it is a transgression. But God is abundant in kindness and forgiving of iniquity and of transgression, and even of sin, things we know are wrong, and we do them anyway. That is, in criminal law what they call premeditation. That's worse than crimes of passion, where you weren't planning to kill somebody, but you just couldn't control your temper and the situation, and you had a moment of rage. But when you sit down and plan it and think about it beforehand and take steps to carry that crime out, that's even worse. So sin, kata, implies awareness of what you're doing is wrong. And the worst form of sin, where there isn't any contrition or act of forgiveness. And so God is capable of forgiving you of transgression and sin, but He by no means clears the guilty. And this phrase that's put in the 7th verse, does that contradict the forgiveness? No. It means God is no fool. You see, we don't want to take kindness for weakness. We don't want to take forgiveness for stupidity. So, some people say, well, they're kind-hearted, right? Other people say, well, they're just easy pushover. I hope nobody says that about Kava, because she's so nice. She's so sweet. Right? But God said, but by no means clearing the guilty. So I know who's guilty, who's not guilty. Even if I forgive you, you're still guilty. But I forgive you and I'm aware. Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children, upon the 3rd and 4th generation. Now some people think this is vindictive, that God punishes the children and the children's children, even down to the 3rd and 4th generations. And the way the rabbis teach this is God does not hold the children responsible for the sins of the parents. But what happens is the sins of the parents have repercussions and consequences upon the children. And sometimes that then affects the grandchildren of those children. And that could go on for generations until some child is able to break the cycle. You see that? So, if you don't teach your children, then they don't even know about Shabbat. They don't even know about Yom Kippur. So now they're in violation, not so much that they never taught me. And because they don't know, they can't teach their children. And so that can go on for generations and generations. And the person who started it was the first one to fail to, as the Torah says, teach your children diligently. And so then you could have generations. Same thing with other cycles, both positive and negative behavior that can go on for generations. And that is why the concept of forgiveness also is so important and so deeply embedded in Torah. I notice how even atheists who don't believe in God, and there are a lot of them, particularly in the modern scientific world, people feel educated people shouldn't believe in superstition and put God in that category. I talked about this in Beth Shalom when I spoke on the subject of Jonah and rationale for dismissing Scripture, dismissing God Himself. But I noticed that even among atheists, they have come to appreciate the value of forgiveness as a psychological necessity. On a lot of these talk shows, they tell people that they need to be able to forgive. It's necessary for their own healing process. Even though they may not believe in God, they understand the concept of forgiveness, how crucial and important it is to human mental and spiritual health. So how could you feel like an atheist? We have been teaching this for 5,000 years, the concept of forgiveness. And that is not just about the person who sinned, it's about you. That's new psychology. New psychology. Today, 21st century psychologists just figured that out. Right? We have been saying that, teaching that, preaching that, and practicing that for thousands of years of how important it is to get rid of that hatred and get rid of regret and to get rid of painful things in the past. That it is not only psychologically healthy. For us, it is a requirement of our faith. It is a requirement of our faith that we do this, and that we do this today. That we not carry things on for years and years and years and years. You know, Freud, again, not surprised, another Jew. Freud, the father of modern psychology, right? He said a lot of the problems today go back to people's what? Childhood. Right? Looking at the childhood, understanding the connection to the past. And so I'm pretty sure that, you know, some of that comes out of his own Judaic upbringing and understanding of the spiritual connection. And people who are not able to cut the bonds with the past. I'm going to skip where I was going to go with Numbers, which gives me the same thing, and use an illustration, because God teaches sometimes an illustration. And this is why atheists will get up. I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago, another atheist who says in his biology class, he tells the students, you know, you have to separate God from science. Why do you feel the need to have to do that? The two can coexist together and understanding it. And I think about it, I said, well, you know, the Bible isn't a science textbook. It isn't intended to be. God reveals certain things to us about the secrets of the creation of the universe. The first thing God says to those of us who study the Bible is, what is the first thing God created? What did God create on the first day of creation? Light. And God said, Yehu'ur, Vayi'ur. And there was light. So I look at my evolutionary biologist friends who disregard the Bible as science, and I said, well, all right, what is your view of creation? And they said, we started with a Big Bang. So I said, oh, your Big Bang, that's like science. My Big Bang, like that's fairy tale. God was saying this from the beginning. It all started with this light that I created. Secondly, he goes on, as we'll be seeing as we get into Genesis in a few weeks, that it was a process. Scientists call that evolutionary. So the Bible is the first evolutionary story of the creation of the universe. That it didn't happen all at once, but happened in stages. The Bible is evolutionary. Well, you either believe in the Bible or you believe in evolution. The Bible is evolutionary. Right? And the evolution is very simple in terms of the steps, which will take scientists thousands of years to figure out the correctness and accuracy of the Bible. Right? When God says that the earth was void, it was covered with water, and God calls the dry land a people. Long before geologists, long before man was able to go into outer space and take pictures of the earth from outer space and see that it's mostly water. So how can these people on there without boats and ships? God already told us that it was mostly water. He caused the dry land to appear, and then the green things, and then the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and that man is the last thing he's ever read in Scripture today. So I see a lot of consistency there. In other areas, it's just long body and forgiveness and truth. Emet. Emet is different from fact or fiction. These are not the same words. Emet means truth. Western society likes to divide things into fact or fiction. And see, fiction means that it's not true. Right? And so for Torah Emet, there is a lot of truth we can find even in fiction. It's a good fiction. I'm talking about Moby Dick. I think it's a good story. A lot of moral lessons contained in that. A lot of other literature, good movies, and so on and so forth that might have some truth that the author is trying to teach in the story, if it has a point to the story. So here we look at the book of 2 Samuel, the 12th chapter, the first verse. We get a story. And the story, I believe, is important for the point that it is about to make. Not for the people who have been dead for thousands of years. And it may or may not have happened. That's almost immaterial, and almost irrelevant. I believe it did. Maybe it didn't happen. But the point, the truth is there. And it says, and the Lord said to Nathan, unto David, and he came to him and said to him, there were two men in one city, one rich and one poor. So right away he's telling a story in the story. A story within a story. Right? 2 Samuel 12th chapter, starting at the first verse. And Nathan wants to tell David a story. And I believe this is an allegorical story. It sounds like an allegorical. So you could have a story within a story. And in Nathan's story to David, in this story in 2 Samuel, he says there were two men, a rich man and a poor man. They don't even have names. The rich man had exceedingly many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had brought and nourished up, and brought up together with them and with his children. It did eat of his own meat and drink of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was to him as a daughter, one of his own children. He loved this little lamb right here. It was like a pet. And he fed it, he took good care of it. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of his own flock and of his own herd, of which he had many. Right? Because he told his rich, he's got hundreds of sheep and goats and so on and so forth, to dress for the wayfaring man that was coming to him. But he took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man. And he said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man that has done this thing shall surely die. David was upset when he heard that story. Right? And this is why, like I said in the Bible, and that truth, right? You can use different methods, different tools to make a very truthful point. It could be a true story about two people. It could be a story that you made up. It could be a story that you heard. But boy, the truth is there. Right? Of the rich man and the poor man. And the rich man has so much. And when he has a guest, he could just easily got one of his own goats, one of his own sheep, and fed them as guests with sheep from his own flock. But instead, he went and took the poor man's lamb. He only had one lamb, and he loved that lamb. It meant so much to him, and he took the poor man's lamb. Now, everyone could see the injustice of that story. David recognized it right away, and he said, if this is a true story, then that man is going to be punished. Right? He's going to be put to death. And Jonathan said to David, you are that man. You are that man. You think I'm telling you a fictional story about some other man? I'm talking about you. I'm using a metaphor to say you're king of Israel. You have so much. You have wealth. You have horses. You have palaces. You have a whole harem of women. Right? All these wives. And yet you go take this other man's wife. You are just like the man in the story. You are just like him. Now, when it came to somebody else, were you pleading for mercy? Were you talking about forgiveness? Were you talking about compassion? No, for somebody else, they should be punished. But for yourself, you want compassion. Do we see this all the time? Right? Our society, we have just so much hypocrisy. I see politicians all the time. I was reading about one of your politicians here in Queens, and I'm glad it wasn't the person who gave us the plot. So I'm reading the New York Times, another one. Gosh, my goodness. God, you got it. But anytime they get involved and embroiled in one of these scandals and guilty, they always ask for forgiveness and mercy. And one of them, and I'm mentioning the names, he was caught on tape and he was still running for re-election. We see people, politicians do this, they get caught, even here in New York. There's so many New Yorkers. And they'll run again and sometimes get re-elected. The people will vote for them and send them back to office. So people are forgiving and compassionate when it comes to politicians. But sometimes when we hear about other people and their downfall, to say, oh, for them there's got to be punishment. For them, it brings out the kind of worst. And this is where we kind of prioritize our own sins. Well, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. Everybody sins. But this other person, oh boy, they're the ones who really should be punished. And we want a real punishment for them. Same thing among the clergy, with the ministers, and they get caught in different situations, and then they ask for mercy. You know how to find the scriptures then. But then when it's condemning other people in their lives and their lifestyle, they know how to find those scriptures, talk about condemnation. We get our names, and we see them all the time. And so when we want mercy for ourselves and punishment for everybody else. And this contradiction and this hypocrisy is what the scriptures speak against. In the Psalms, the 25th chapter, the 6th verse, keep the line up to, I don't want you to be too long because then you'll be thinking about food. So we'll go and then we'll take a break and we'll have like maybe a 25, 30-minute break and we'll come right back. And Nasika will lead us in the Psalm service. And by the time she finishes the Psalms, it'll be time to eat, right, Nasika?
That's right.
All right. So you won't even have like, before you know it, boom. Right? But we won't just have like idle time thinking about food. But the Psalms, and this is not what the Psalm Nasika is going to be. This is Psalm 25. 25 says, "Remember, O Lord, thy tender mercies and thy loving kindness, for they have been ever of old. Remember not the sins of my youth, nor my transgressions. According to the mercy, remember thou me, for thy goodness' sake." So this psalm, they don't remember the sins of my youth. We have asked for forgiveness for them. When we were at the river, we said, "Cast all my sins into the depths of the sea, that they never be remembered again." Remember, Beth used us to pray that prayer. "Remember not the sins of my youth, nor my transgressions. According to thy mercy, remember thou me, for thy goodness' sake, O Lord. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore, he will teach sinners in the way." What does it say? He will teach sinners. So we believe the sinners can be taught. The meek he will guide in judgment, and the meek he will teach his way. All the paths of the Lord are mercy and truth unto such as keep his commandments and his testimonies. For thy name's sake, O Lord, pardon my iniquity, for it is great. Now I'm going to go to Isaiah, who wrote the Hop Torah for today, came from the book of Isaiah, and two of my other passages deal with Isaiah as well. One of our great prophets who spoke a lot about sin and about forgiveness. Isaiah, described from the beginning of the book, he describes himself as a sinful man who came into the revelation of the Most High. In the 6th chapter, he says, "Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips." See, this is Isaiah. The same Isaiah, as we said, who has more to say than any of the other prophets, over 60 chapters in his book. He says, I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell among the people of unclean lips. See, we're going to start with Psalm 1. So bless the man that walketh not in the counsel of the God, nor standeth in the way of the sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Isaiah said, that's not me. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell among people of unclean lips. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphim, one of the angels, upon me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs, because it's burning from all of them. And he laid it upon my lips. And he said, Lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin is purged. You can't make it for to say, you say, well, I am too unclean to even have the word of God in my mouth, to even sing praises unto the Lord. Someone who has done what I've done and said the things that I've said, and I'm not worthy. And Isaiah said, the angel purified, took a coal, and said, I will clean your lips. Then I heard voice saying, whom shall I send? And who will go first? Then I said, here I am, said me. In the 43rd chapter, Isaiah also said, even I, am he that blotteth out thy transgression for my own sake, and will not remember thy sins. Put me in remembrance. Let us plead together to declare you that thou mayest be justified. Thy first father hath sinned, and thy teachers have transgressed against me. Therefore I have profaned the princes of the sanctuary, and have given Jacob to the curse, and Israel to reproach. I'm going to just take maybe a little bit of this. I think you're getting the point at this point in the night. And with Ezekiel here. And before I take this final verse, this concept of sin and forgiveness is also a distinguishing fact between our way of life and our Christian brothers and sisters. So you say, well, doesn't everyone preach these scriptures and everyone believe in mercy and that God is merciful, forgiving, and so on and so forth? And I would say, well, the difference is, you see, that the Torah tells us that we are all responsible for our own sins. And we must atone for that. We must fast. We must ask God for forgiveness. And we must ask forgiveness of each other. And we must do this every year. This is what we say. My Christian friends tell me God, or this is Jesus, died for our sins. And I always found this very confusing because as we have our candles on the altar sacrifice, and my father would say, well, we're going to see if we're going to be inscribed in the book of life. And you have to atone for your sins, and you think about your sins, and you think, right? Because your sins weigh upon you, right? And you're thinking about, am I going to be worthy? Am I going to be just? Each person at this moment is supposed to be thinking about his or her own life and his or her own sins and asking forgiveness for that. The concept of personal responsibility. You're responsible. Nobody else is responsible for your sins. Nobody else is going to die for your sins. Well, Jesus died for your sins. I guess that's you're lucky then. We may die for our own sins. But, I find a contradiction even with that because I have a lot of close Christian friends, a lot of good close Christian clergy as friends. And what I find contradiction in the concept is although they say Jesus died for my sins and they say that all the time, when I hear them preach, even on television, they preach fire and brimstone. People going to hell all the time. And so, then why do you got to worry about your sins then? Jesus died for you, should have no worry. He paid for it. I'm going to pay it. But yet, they make people still believe that they're still responsible. So either it's paid for or it's not paid for. So I tell people, it's not paid for. Nobody is paying for your sins. So there's no confusion. It's like imagine you in a restaurant with a friend, and your friend tells you he's got the check. Right? If you got it, you got it. Right? Don't wait till the check comes in. Maybe I got it, maybe I don't got it. Especially before we eat them. But if you say you got it, then you're going to pay for it. Right? If you say I got to pay for it, then I eat differently. But if you're paying for it, then it's paid for. Right? My sins are paid for, Jesus paid for my sins. So then what are you worried about? But see, the concept for us, this is a very different concept. In Judaism, we believe in individual personal responsibility. Prophet Amos, not to read the scripture, not to know the story. Prophet Amos says, what do you mean by this proverb? The fathers have eaten unripe grapes, and the children's teeth are southern apples. What does that proverb mean? If the father drinks the unripe grapes, he should have the bad taste in his mouth. Right? And Amos says, no, never, don't use that proverb anymore in Israel. Whoever eats the unripe grapes, they will have a bad taste in their mouth. But Ezekiel here, and this is my final verse, he makes this clear. He says, the word of the Lord came to me again, saying, what mean ye that ye use this proverb concerning the land of Israel, saying, the fathers have eaten unripe grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. Third verse. As I live, says the Lord. As I live, says the Lord God, ye shall not have occasion any more to use this proverb. Behold, fourth verse, all souls are mine. All souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so is the soul of the Son is mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Fourth verse. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. So Ezekiel told to his stop saying that. Stop using that proverb. I don't know where you heard it, where you got it from. The fathers drink the bad wine, but the children have the consequences of it. He says, as I live, all souls are mine. The soul that sinned, it will die. But if a man be just, and do that which is lawful and right, and have not eaten upon the mountain, neither have lifted up his eyes to the idols in the house of Israel, neither have defiled his neighbor's wife, neither have come near to a useless woman, and have oppressed any, but hath restored to the debtor his pledge, hath spoiled none by violence, and hath given his bread to the hungry, and hath covered the naked with a garment, he that hath not given forth upon usury. Usury is excessive interest. We should use that word today. I don't know why they don't use that word to describe interest rates 13, 14, 15, 18, average 18, 19%. That's usury. He that who giveth not forth his money to usury, nor have taken any increase, that hath withdrawn his hand from iniquity, hath executed due judgment between man and man, have walked in my statutes, and kept my judgments to deal truly. He is just, and he shall live, says the Lord. If he beget a son that is a robber, a shedder of blood, and that doeth the like to any one of these things, and that doeth not any of these duties, but even have eaten upon the mountains, and defiled his neighbor's wife, have oppressed the poor and needy, have spoiled by violence, basically the opposite of all the things that the Father has done. Now, lo, if he beget a son that seeth all his father's sins, which he hath done, and considereth and do not such like, that he hath not eaten upon the mountain, doing again the opposite of what it just described. So basically what Isaiah is saying here in the 20th verse, the soul that sinneth, this shall die. The Son shall not bear the iniquity of the Father, neither shall the Father bear the iniquity of the Son. Let me repeat that again. The Son shall not bear the iniquity of the Father, neither shall the Father bear the iniquity of the Son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him. But if the wicked will turn from his sin that he hath committed, and keep all my statutes, and do that which is lawful and right, he shall surely live. He shall not die. All his transgressions that he hath committed, they shall not be mentioned upon him. In his righteousness that he hath done, he shall live. So again, the mercy of God says, even the wicked man, if he starts doing right, Isaiah says, I take no delight in the death of the wicked. I rather the wicked man learn to do well, cease to do evil. Right? And if he turns from his evil ways, he will be forgiven and God will bless him. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. But this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment concerning every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Shabbat shalom and shalom aleichem.